Morning everyone. So the last little video over our Christmas and New Year, today still in distance to do with Shuang Yang. So a few things. First of all, if I'm standing facing Bob here, you want to be out of range if that's an opponent, just enough, because if he was to throw a punch now, even with the turn of the waist, he's only just touched. So he's not really got major knockout power there. If he was strong enough to have good fingers, then of course your spear hand will be strong enough to go through it. But it's the key of knowing that distance. Leave me alone, I don't want any trouble having that space from there. Now our initial first movement, salutation to the sun, we sink and we turn. At this point you place the heel. The bend of your knee dictates the amount that you will step forward and the amount of drive forward that you will have. So unwinding the waist, tucking the thumb in, come across and strike at the temple height from here. Now obviously your focus is to go through and then allow yourself to sink down to the 4 points of gold from here. It's very important, of course, to finish in this defensive position that is strong. If you're pushed here, the force will go down through into the back leg, be very strong. The moment you finish too high and they push you, it will go into the back and then it will hurt your back and you'll never be able to sustain the position. So it's important to get that fundamental thing. Now, knowing the distance is important. Now, obviously a person isn't just going to stand there, they may sway back or move out of range as well. So if I simulate Bob being slightly further back from here now, if I'm doing the same movement and I sink and I turn and I place, if he had swayed back now, as I come across, the fingers can slash the eyes to come down. Now, we take for granted these simple things, but actually, if you get caught in the eye, you can't see very well, and then the person can run away. So that's the ultimate form of defense, is to not have to hit someone, say 20 times in the head and give them brain damage. Now, the name of the form, Shuang Yang, is a play on yin yang, the two sides as well. So turning so the palm faces you, sinking so the palm faces forward is important. For slashing the eyes, we're not whipping like crane feathers open out, we're turning deliberately to get a better cut across with the nails when we sink from there. That's the first part that's important. Now the next part in our particular club, White Crane Fighting Arts, we open out our cross to the stretch and we open out and the wrist ends up in line with the chest from here. Then we turn and we push out. So many times I'll see people will open and bring the hands all the way back and then push out. I don't personally agree with this. First of all, on a health aspect, the further you pull back, the more you pinch your shoulder blades, the more this doesn't help with the flow, with neck and upper back problems. So it's important, those fundamentals, to get that opening out, keeping it in front. So you're expanding the lungs and the chest, opening out and then pushing out from there. Now also fundamentally as a striking point, if we're striking with the wrist, a natural boxer years ago told me about God's natural gifts, he called it. So whether it's your wrists, whether it's your elbows, whether it's your head, whether it's your knee, whether it's your hip, whether it's your heel, all of these points are natural hard points. Now if I'm doing from the cross to the stretch, you want to open out, and the point of impact you're aiming at is about 45 degrees. So I'm still training to go through the target, but I'm not pinching those shoulder blades when I come back as well. Okay, now I know some may argue at expanding the chest at the front and so on. This is just my personal view on this as well. So it's important to get that maximum impact. Now, you could also imagine if I open now to full extension here, as I was saying we don't do, if somebody had moved and avoided this strike here as well, you're leaving yourself open. If somebody was to block or to open and rip the arm out, you're more likely to tear your shoulder. So it's really about being aware of where the strengths and weaknesses are. And of course, often real fighting is actually quite ugly as well. As a final detail on this, Bob can't move sadly, of course. If I have struck and hit the chin from here, the leverage between the chin and the neck will turn the head slightly. Now, so if I change my positioning here slightly, as I open out here and I turn, the thumb places into the pressure point behind the ear here, and literally the way we press in and up and out is what really makes this a very painful position. This also will begin to turn the torso, which sets up for our general snatches the seal, whereby we then strike from here. Now this same point that we're striking now with these first two knuckles here, if you go from the nipple outwards here, it's particularly painful when you get struck on this point on the actual upper part of the chest here as well. Now, especially if the person's arm is raised, it opens the cavity more, makes this even more painful. So you can be winded from the top down in effect, as opposed as usual from your solar plexus up. So hopefully this helps today. Thanks very much.